Hi, I'm Jaylynn Cruz. I'm Miss Grand Gibraltar, and this is my interview with the Pageant Project.
Hello, everyone. Good evening in Australia, but it's good morning over in Gibraltar, where my special guest is Miss Grand Gibraltar, Jaylynn Cruz. Jaylynn, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm very excited and nervous.
Now, first things first, you were telling me the story about how you got your name, and I certainly have not ever encountered a Jaylynn before. So, would you like to recount to our lovely audience exactly how you got your unusual name?
So my father's name is Jason, and my mom's name is Lynette, and they had a lot of time on their hands. So they kind of mixed their names together and they came up with Jaylynn.
How many times have you had to tell that story?
Many, 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 many times.
And how many other Jaylynns? I mean, you mentioned that you had met one Jaylynn the other day, but how many other Jaylynns have you met?
Not many. No, I actually got a follow on Instagram from another Jaylynn, but I think years ago, and I messaged her saying, "Oh, hey, we have the same name," and she never replied to me.
You scared her off. Must be a Jaylynn fan club out there. Why don't we? Actually, I want to ask you because I believe you attended the Pride Festival. Was it yesterday?
Yes, just briefly. I had a bit of time, and I thought I got to drop in.
Yeah, because I saw that Faith was emceeing or hosting or something like that. How was
Yes,
it? How did it go?
it was amazing. It's something relatively new in Gibraltar, so it's kind of this huge celebration of Pride. It's so important. It's so significant, especially as in Gibraltar was such a small community. We're kind
Mm.
of we're kind of getting there, no? Getting with the times a little bit. So it's really nice to see all the diversity and just things that we don't usually see in Gib. So there was some performances, there were drag queens, singers. It was incredible. I love anything Pride.
I don't quite understand drag queens, but I know a lot of pageant queens are very, very interested in drag queens. I keep talking about RuPaul's Drag Race and insisting that I watch it.
Fiber.
Um, yeah, I what obviously I've interviewed Faith, who, for those of you watching, if you're not familiar, is the current Miss World Gibraltar,
Yeah.
and I found it fascinating talking about Gibraltar or Gib, as you guys call it, which I had never heard. Well, I'd heard of Gibraltar and I've heard of the Rock of Gibraltar, but I had no idea that there was on the the southernmost tip of the Spanish sort of the peninsula. There's this little part that's still UK, and it's this really fascinating melting pot of all these diverse cultures
Yeah.
from what I've seen. What I mean, what has your experience in Gibraltar been like? Were you born and bred there? Did you move there? What's a typical day
Yeah.
in the life like?
I am, as we call it in Gibraltar, I am a Janita 100%. So my parents are from Gibraltar, my grandparents are from Gibraltar, and then my great grandparents is where you start to see a bit of diversity. So I
Right.
think my great grandmother is Spanish. Then I have a great grandfather who was Irish. Just a
Wow.
really random mix of culture and people. I love Gibraltar. I mean, it's warm. I love the climate. And I think just the people are really supportive, really, really friendly. Um, Obviously, we're very, very small. So sometimes for opportunities, we need to travel abroad. So, for an example, for university, I moved over to Liverpool for 4 years. I'm a
Oh wow.
Scouser,
Okay. Yeah.
Liverpudlian. But actually, now we've just got a university. So in the last, I think, 3, 4 years, they've opened a university here. So a lot of people are actually going through the Gibraltar University. So we actually have a bit more opportunity here now.
It I mean, you trace sort of you're from Gibraltar, born and bred, your parents, and then back to your grandparents. So, and you sound like you love it. And this is something that sounds familiar with from when I was talking to Faith. It sounds like an amazing place. She kept mentioning the people. I mean, you said the climate's warm. She kept saying that the people are very loving and warm as well. Um, do you have any desire to? I mean, you said you traveled like for university to Liverpool, which is quite different. It's certainly not warm in the UK, but
No,
do you have any desire to maybe somewhere down the track move somewhere else or live somewhere else? Or you sound like you love Gibraltar so much. It sounds like you'd be happy to stay there.
I think I'm very family orientated, so I love spending time with my family. So I think it would be really, really difficult for me to move abroad. I mean, I enjoyed my time away, but I was craving to come back
Right.
and be here at home, the food, the jokes, going to the beach with my family. It's just, I don't know. It's the little things. It's the simple things.
How did you find the climate in Liverpool? The warm Liverpool weather. Did you enjoy it?
I loved it. I was down by the Mersey every single day. No, I actually was because I lived just by the Mersey. So just by
Right. Okay.
so I had a really good time because obviously the way that it works in Gibraltar is that if a couple of Gibraltarian people go to study, they usually try and kind of stick together. Some people don't, obviously, but I kind of stayed with some friends that I had from Gibraltar. So even though I had the uni experience of meeting new people, being in a different
Hmm.
city, a different country, I still had my friends from home, which to this day they're still one of my best friends. So
I mean, it's nice. I think when you're traveling abroad, obviously you want to try some of the new things, but also to have some of your roots and some of your friends who are familiar with where you're at. I mean, you mentioned that you love the food. How was the food over in Liverpool? Was that a bit of a culture shock at all?
well, it's very typical that in Gibraltar we kind of pack all the local produce. So
Hmm.
my tomate frito, my arroz frillante, which is a Spanish friend of rice, my I don't know, just lots of different things. What's it called? Pan rajao, breadcrumbs.
Oh
So
wow.
in
Okay.
the UK they use panko breadcrumbs.
Anko. Yep.
Well, here in Spain, in Gibraltar, they use a different kind of a different kind, so we kind of all ship it over, and we share amongst ourselves. So we're like, oh, she has tomate frito left.
So it sounds like you didn't really. I mean, what did you think of the
Well,
UK cuisine, let so to speak?
well, um, I had to. I'd have like I had a chip butty,
Oh
with
God,
some
what did
gravy.
what did you think of the chip butty? I'm from Australia. Like I'm not quite. We don't quite do what you said, but we have a lot of fresh local produce here, and I think we're very spoilt in Australia. We have, for example, seafood, probably some of the best seafood in the world. I mean, you guys are around the ocean, so I'm sure you got great seafood. But there's really fresh produce, and it's really difficult to get bad food here. And then when I went to the UK, I was a bit shocked. There was chip butties, and then there was the pub food, which sometimes was really good, but sometimes was swimming in a pile of grease. And it took me a bit of getting used to. Did your experience was that similar to your own at all?
The thing is that I love food, so
Okay.
I equally would really really enjoy a Weatherspoons.
Okay.
And
Okay.
like the same as, well, maybe not the same, but the same as I'd enjoy some local food, some food from home. But we're,
Wow.
we're kind
Okay.
of the same. We have access to really good food here,
Yeah.
fresh fish, and then in Spain mostly we get a lot of good meat as well. I'm more of a fish girl, but we are lucky. We eat very well here.
Yeah. I'm surprised to hear. I mean, Weatherspoons. Yeah. Did you the Weatherspoons? Was it TGIF as well? That thank God it's Fridays, and all
TGI
these other.
Fridays, yes. Daniels, double glazed barbecue ribs. I actually was vegetarian for about a year, and
Okay.
then I met my partner, my boyfriend, and he was obviously super upset that I was vegetarian. And then one night I just said, I'm going to order myself a rack of ribs. So I went from being completely vegetarian to eating ribs, my first comeback meal.
How was that for you? I mean, I was vegan for a year, but I would have like one day of the week where I would eat kind of anything I wanted. But for being a vegetarian for a year to eating ribs, did you get back to it pretty easily, or was it a bit of a shock?
I just felt that I've never been a huge meat eater at all, at
Yeah.
all. So when I turned vegetarian, or I tried to be a really good vegetarian, I just started craving it, but craving all the bad stuff, the ribs, kebab, burgers. That's what I would crave. So I thought, I'm not being true to myself here. It's not fair. Although I try to not eat a lot of meat. Fish, I find it hard to cut down on, just because of the area that we
Mm.
live in. But I am conscious of not overindulging in meat. But it's hard, especially when you go out for dinner, for lunch here. There's not a lot of vegetarian or vegan options available. I think we've got one vegan restaurant in Gibraltar. Just
Right.
one.
Okay. I mean, fish, I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, fish, I think you can easily live on fish, and there's a lot of variety. When you went vegetarian, was it out of a health reason? Was it just an experiment that you wanted to see how it went?
It was more for the ethical side of it,
Hmm.
animals. It's just, it was like when you watch a couple of documentaries of how
Yeah.
meat is sourced, and it really impacts you. And I thought, this can't be. My dad is actually, well, pescatarian.
Yeah.
He's kind of like you. He indulges every now and again, but for the majority, he's pescatarian. He doesn't really have chicken or red meat or anything like that.
Oh, yeah, I think because when I was vegan, it was probably 5 or 10 years ago, and I think back then, because similarly to yourself, I saw some of those documentaries. I don't know if they were the same documentaries, but they're pretty shocking.
Hmm.
Um, but what I came to realize was that they were filmed mainly in America, and
Hmm.
in America, because of the size of the population, they do need to do things pretty differently, like huge factories with slaughterhouses. And someone said if slaughterhouses had glass walls, everyone would be vegetarian. And
Hmm.
after I saw that, I was like, okay, I'm going to try to do the right thing, so to speak. But I think since then, there's been a lot more effort put into animals being treated ethically.
Hmm.
I mean, obviously, you still have to kill them to eat them, but done
Hmm.
in a relatively painless way, hopefully. But no, I'm with you. I'd be happy to probably live off fish, and sounds like you've got a lot of good seafood where you're at. Um, we should probably mention the pageant. You have a rather you have a rather large pageant coming up, one of the biggest in the world. Um, but I don't know anything about your pageant history, and I don't know much about Gibraltarian pageants. Full stop. I mean, as I was when I was saying to Faith, I looked up Miss World, and I was amazed to find that Gibraltar has actually won Miss World
Yeah.
not that long ago. So I was like, okay, you might be tiny, but you're mighty. So tell me, how did you get into pageants to begin with?
In Gibraltar, there is one pageant.
Okay.
Well, now there's a few others, but really there's one big main pageant, which
Yeah.
is Miss Gibraltar,
Yeah.
and that's been going on for as long as I can remember. My mom actually entered in 1993, and she placed second princess and Miss Personality. So I kind of grew up seeing this massive frame of my mom at home when it was in
Yeah.
my granny's house with her sash, kind of, you know. And I thought, like, it was the coolest thing in the world. It was I couldn't believe that my mom. It was
Yeah.
just magical. It was kind of out of touch for me. And
Yeah.
as I got got older, like the Miss Gibraltar winner always has a lot of presence in Gibraltar, so it was always something I looked up to. I always wanted to be Miss Gibraltar, and as I got older, I always thought, well, I'm going to enter, and then I did, and then COVID happened,
Mm-hmm.
and the pageant was cancelled,
Yeah.
and it was not until 3 years after I had initially entered. So the pageant never came to fruition. The pageant just never happened.
Right.
Everything was cancelled. I did my initial photograph, and that's it. The applications came out again, and I thought, you know what? I don't know. Is it a bit past my? Has my moment passed?
Yeah.
Because in Gibraltar, many of the contestants are quite young, and
Yeah.
I was 25, going to be 26 that year. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to give it a go. And I'm so happy that I did. But so actually, it was my first pageant experience.
Wow.
Pageant. I've done other things. I've modeled a lot in Gibraltar for local designers, for international designers. I've been really, really lucky. But it's so different. The pageant world is so different to modeling. And I think that's one thing that I'm really, really trying to learn about and put myself out there and grow in confidence, because if what I felt in the pageant world is that if you don't believe in yourself, how can you transmit that? And no one will believe you. So it's finding that inner confidence and learning about where you're going, what you're doing. It's just so different. The more I learn about the pageant world, the more I realize how big it actually is.
Well, I mean, it sounds like actually in Gibraltar that, especially the Miss Gibraltar position, is quite well recognized. I know that when Gibraltar won Miss World, that you guys had basically a homecoming ceremony, and it was a public holiday. From that would never happen here in Australia. But in terms of scale, I mean, you guys have a population of what, about 30,000, I think,
Yeah.
and then
Now
you're
it's
going
up to like 32.
right. And then you're going to compete at Miss Grand, where the stadium conceivably could have 10,000 people by itself. So, what parts? I mean, you said that you've modeled fairly extensively, but this is your first pageant experience. Which parts did you find the most challenging?
The stamina of being in a good headspace.
Okay.
That was the thing that I found most challenging, especially in Gibraltar. Everyone knows you. So, and everyone knows kind of your background, who your parents are, who your friends are, where you work. And they know all the other contestants, their family, where they work, and kind of just hearing, porque I think you're going to win. And then the other one's like, oh, well, no sé, es un poquito difícil. It's a bit hard for you to, and it's really difficult to not get kind of roped into all of that. So I just try to stay really, really calm, focused, and just focus on myself and not on my other competitors. Because at the end of the day, I want them to be their best version of themselves equally as I want to be the best version of myself. So that's the one thing that I found the hardest. My mum has been exceptional with me, my brother as well. Just they always keep me grounded and keep me focused. So I'm very, very grateful. And my boyfriend, Frank, before he watches this.
And gets mad at you for not mentioning him. Is so because we've already mentioned that in Gibraltar the people are very loving and very warm, and as you said, because of the size of it, almost everyone knows everyone. So, am I right in saying that that's probably like a double-edged sword? Like it's a good thing, but it can also be a very challenging thing, particularly in a pageant.
Yes. So one thing I really wanted to keep during the whole pageant experience is that I wanted to come across as myself. I didn't want to get lost in all of this I love glam. I was still the best version of myself, but glam.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to lose, I didn't want the audience or the people to lose sight of who I was, because it is my identity. I just wanted to, like, as I said before, to show the best version of myself. I didn't want to get too caught up in changing who I was or pretending to be something that I'm not. I think that I'm super proud of myself, for really keeping to my values and coming across as the person that I am during the pageant. And I think I won Miss Interview, so I think that was reflected in my interview, that I wanted to be genuine, glam, but genuine and myself.
Tell me, I mean, congratulations on winning interview, because I don't know how much you know, but for a lot of pageant girls, interview is the most stressful and confronting part. The stage is easy. It's when you have to open your mouth that sometimes it can be a bit more challenging. But I want to ask, who are you, or who is Jaylynn? And I don't mean that in a weird way, but like, you talked about beliefs and values, and I think it's very important. And I'm sure you found this, that as you go through your pageant journey, you do have to ask yourself, well, who am I? What do I
Hmm.
stand for? What do I believe in? Because there's so many things that you could stand for.
Hmm.
So along your journey, I mean, if you had to describe, or your friends had to describe you in a few words, what are the first words they would use to describe Jaylynn?
Honest,
Okay.
loud. I think loud. I'm quite. I'm a big personality. When
Okay, good.
I can be a big personality,
Yeah.
and fun. Yeah, I think those are the kind of keywords. I consider myself to be quite a genuine person. Kind of, what you see is what you get. There's no kind of, I'm not showing you one thing and I've got another agenda at all. If I'm not in agreement with something, if it's not the situation that I need to say, actually, I don't agree with that because it's not appropriate, I'll
Mhm.
just keep to myself. But most of the time, I will be able to say my piece in the most politically correct way possible.
I was going to ask, when you say honest, I didn't think you meant like you don't lie, because hopefully most people don't lie. But
No,
is it like being very straightforward and saying what's on your mind?
I just, I'm not going to pretend to, when if someone asks me, oh, do you like my dress? I'm not going to say yeah, yeah, yeah. I'll say I really like the color, but actually I think maybe a different dress would favor you. I
Mm,
mean, and I appreciate those qualities in people. I
yeah.
don't want someone to give me a dishonest opinion, because if not, I'll make lots of mistakes and probably not not move forward
Yeah.
in anything. I'd rather have honesty. Honesty is the best policy.
It I mean, it's very important, obviously, being honest, and I think having a group of friends around you that will actually tell you the truth in a politically correct way, or hopefully not too
Course.
blunt a way.
I don't ever want to come across as offensive or anything like that. That's what I said before. If I need to keep quiet, I will. But with the right people and the people
Yeah,
within my circle, it's important to be honest.
of course. Is that something that has always been important to you? Because there are a lot of people in this day and age who just want to be told everything is great, and if they get told anything else, they find it very offensive, and then start complaining about how they've been offended. I'm not one of those people. I mean, I might not like to hear that what I'm doing is terrible, but I'd rather you tell me now so I can fix it. Has that always been a quality for yourself?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
I've always been like this, and it got me into trouble when I was younger.
Yeah. Well.
But obviously, as you grow older, you learn that at the end of the day, people have their own feelings and they're entitled to their own
Yeah.
emotions. I don't ever want to hurt anyone with, I'm not going to give you my opinion if you haven't asked for it. But I do consider myself to be genuine, honest.
I know what you mean, but I just want to ask a bit of a silly question. I mean, can you remember a time as a kid growing up when you got into trouble for being a little
Yeah,
too honest?
yes. I had a parents. That's why when you said that, I had like a little giggle because when I was younger, my at school we had a parent, the a parent teacher meeting, an open day,
Yeah.
and the teacher said something of like, "Oh, I really helped Jaylynn in X Y Z," and I just said, no, you didn't." And my mom was sitting beside me, grabbing my leg, like keep quiet, and we'll talk about this when we're home. Um, but yes.
What was your teacher's response to that?
She wasn't very happy. And she
Well, you
covered it
told the
up.
truth, though. I mean, you
I
told
did.
the
I
truth, and
did
there's some.
tell the truth. I think my mom knows who I am. She knows that the same way as I'd say I didn't do it. I
Yeah,
didn't help or contribute to this.
yeah,
Equally, she would say, she knows that I would be honest about that. I'd be like, "Mom, actually, I didn't do this bit," or "Actually, yes, I
yeah.
did." So when I said that, she probably thought she's right, or she's trying to get away with something. But I'm not like that.
I think she probably was grabbing your leg just to keep you quiet. Not that she thought you were lying, but just don't tell us now. Tell us later. Yeah, tell me more a little bit about your family. You've mentioned your mum on multiple occasions and your family, and you
Yeah,
already said your family is hugely important to you. And now we're talking about honesty. I find that those sorts of values, you can only have them if it's like imprinted on you by your family. It's very unlikely that you'll be very honest if your parents and your grandparents are just very, very dishonest. So it can happen, but not often. How important is family to yourself?
they are everything to me. Um, Everything that I do, I'm going back to my mom here, but my mom is my best friend. I have a super good relationship with my mom. I mean, we are a mother and a daughter. We do
Of course.
bicker, um,
Yeah.
but I know that she will always have my back. And if I ever needed to ask for a truthful opinion,
Mm.
or I needed to hear something that was not necessarily good or nice to listen to, I know that she'd be able
Yeah.
to do that for me. My dad is super honest as well, and my brother, really all my
Sounds
family
like
here.
everyone.
Yes, my grandmother, my mama, um, she's a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah.
Um, she she's very honest, but she's very funny. So I think people love her for that. She's hilarious, but brutally honest.
It sounds like you wouldn't have much patience for dishonesty in your life.
No, no. I'd rather just people be clear cut, tell it how it is, and I'll say, okay. I appreciate that way more,
Yeah.
way more. And
Have you
actually,
had an
sorry.
you go. No,
No,
you
it's
continue.
fine.
I was just gonna ask because you mentioned that your mum had competed in Miss Gibraltar back in '93. Have you
Yeah.
had any conversations with her? I mean, I imagine you did, but have you had any conversations with her about you and your pageant journey? Have you asked her for advice? Have you guys talked about how pageantry has changed in the last, I'm looking at my calendar, 30 years? Gee, 1993 to 2023, it's 30 years. Have you had any of those sorts of conversations?
Yes, we watched her Miss Gibraltar pageant together.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the four of us, me, my brother, my mom, and my father. My dad wasn't present during the Miss Gibraltar pageant. He said he couldn't face it. He couldn't face it because he didn't like seeing her on stage back in
Oh,
the day. Back
okay.
in
All right, fair enough.
back in the day. But no, he's super proud of her and he's super proud of me. Um, but yes, it's so different, but so similar at the same time. So the way
Yeah.
that it works in Gibraltar is like the pageant goes out for tender sort of thing. So each
Mm.
person puts their stamp, their own flair on the Miss Gibraltar pageant. And when my mum did her pageant. It was being organized by this local designer called Eduardo Viotto, and he's in Gibraltar. He's a very well known name. Sadly, he passed away quite early on in his life, but his impact remains to this day. I've grown up listening to my mom talk about Eduardo Viotto. Actually, there's a shoot coming out soon where I was able to wear one of his dresses. So
I was going to say, I'm sure I'd heard that name sounds familiar, and I think it's been through trolling your Instagram.
yeah. So Kelvin, which is our director this year, actually, it's the first time he's got the Miss Gibraltar pageant, and he really, really, really threw himself into it, and it's quite similar to my mum's, where the girls the girls are seen quite a lot. There's a lot of routines, group routines, and my mum is kind of it's similar, obviously not the same, but similar. So my mum's pageant, they would all sit down and have a dinner. It wasn't a show. It was a whole event. They would sit down and have dinner.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's super cool. It was done I think it was in the old casino in Gibraltar, but they've done Miss Gibraltar in everywhere. They hosted one in St. Michael's Cave.
Yeah, I heard. Yeah, that would be something.
In Gibraltar, they've done one obviously in a sports complex, but the most beautiful venue for me personally is the Alameda Gardens, which is where we were able to do ours. It's actually the Cayenne Ardorino won her pageant the year that they did it in Alameda Gardens. So it has that kind of.
Okay. I mean, it looked absolutely stunning. I saw bits and pieces of it, and the lighting and the whole thing looked really well lit and dramatic. It looked like a proper show, which I have to say very often these days in pageantry, you don't get that. You're just like at some dingy place and there's the girls up on some stage and it looks terrible. But your guys, the production, if it's his first time, Kelvin, doing it, I mean, he did an amazing job from what I've seen. But I need to back up a little bit because you said your dad couldn't watch your mum competing.
No.
Do you happen to know the story of how your dad met your mum? Because I mean, he's married.
Yeah.
How did your dad meet your mum? Was it after Miss Gibraltar? Was it before Miss Gibraltar? What happened there?
Before. My mum would walk home from what I don't know from where she doesn't. I don't know. She didn't specify, but she would walk home, and she would see my dad in his car. Because cars are a big thing in Gib. Everyone has a really nice car. We try to have, like the youngsters try and have cool cars.
I mean, you can't drive anywhere, but okay. I mean, have a nice car.
I know. We drive to Spain. So I think that's everyone's excuse.
Oh, okay.
No, we hace falta el coche para España. So we need a good car so we can drive in Spain safely.
Sure.
And he would drive by my mum and she would think, he's a bit odd. He's stalking me.
Jeez.
And then her friends are like, why don't you give it a go? Why didn't you give it a go? So one day she got on his car. I mean, it sounds really dodgy, but because everyone in Gibraltar knows everyone, you know, like she knew him and his sister.
Yeah.
So it's not just she's hopping into a random guy's car, like, and the rest is history.
Wow.
She actually really, really enjoyed spending time with him. So that's how they met. What's that series? How I Met Your Mother? No.
But I think this is a uniquely Gibraltarian love story because, as you said, no other country would I recommend getting into a strange man's car. I wouldn't try it here in Sydney, and I certainly wouldn't have done it in the UK and Liverpool. But I just think it's so funny that your mum's first impression was that he was odd. I thought you were going to say, "Oh, he's good looking," or "He's got a nice car." No, he was odd. And you know, he wasn't super keen on the idea of your mum competing at Miss Gibraltar then.
No. And even when I entered, he was a bit apprehensive. He would say, "But Jaylynn, you're the most beautiful girl anyway. Why are you entering?" And I'm like, that's not the point, Dad. I was like, it's a whole journey. might be really, really beautiful to you, but there are so many other beautiful girls out there. Like, and it's not just about the prettiest girl. It's not just about that. It's your personality, confidence,
Yeah,
who you are, and
100%.
what you stand for as a person. All of that comes across, and they really, really, it really, really makes you unpick who you are in
Yeah.
pageantry,
Yep.
especially for the interview. That interview prep it's hard.
Yeah.
It's
You
challenging.
got to ask yourself some difficult questions, but that's how you, I think, find out who you really are, and then you can give some really good thought-provoking answers during the interview. I mean, your dad wasn't able to watch your mum. Was your dad able to watch you? That would have
Yes.
been worse. He was. How did
Yes,
he find it? Did he enjoy it? Did he not
yeah.
watch? Was he covering his eyes the whole time?
My dad is not a crier at all. My mum says that she saw him shed a tear when I
Oh.
came out in my evening gown.
So has he changed his mind about pageants now?
I'd like to think so, even if it's just a little bit. I think when it comes down to it, he's just really, really proud of me, and he's one of these people that he again, another person that grounds me. Don't lose sight of who you are. Just be the best version of yourself, is the advice I keep on getting.
Is there, I mean, you sound like a very humble person, and your whole family sounds pretty
They,
humble as well. So is it really, when you say grounds you, I mean, it doesn't sound to me like there's a huge danger in you thinking that,
I,
you're the best person in the world. So when you say ground you, do you mean like in a different way, or is it just keeping you like centered and focused?
I think keeping me centered, focused, and calm, because it's really, really easy to just, there's so many beautiful contestants, and
Yeah.
and there's only, I think, 24, 25 of us
Yeah.
at the moment, and they are all stunning, and you can just see through their Instagrams, like they're so experienced and
Yeah.
so out there, and it's really easy to feel maybe not the right word, intimidated by
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
these by, by these beautiful women. But I'm sure that they've all gone on their own journey. And I actually
Yeah.
listened to your podcast with Miss Grand Paraguay,
Yeah.
and
Malia.
she spoke quite nicely about it, how
Yeah.
she just really wants to stay focus on herself. She knows what's coming up and how she's going to do it, and really, you can see that she's got this huge platform, but she's always bringing it
Mhm.
back into herself, refocusing and moving forward. And I thought that was really lovely for her, to the way that she phrased it was really, really beautiful.
Well, she has been through, and obviously when you go over there, you'll meet her. But I interviewed Malia previously about a year or two ago, and that was when she was competing in the Miss USA system, and she's been through some very big mental health battles.
Mm-hmm.
And I think one of the things that really struck me interviewing her this time is how much she's learnt
Mm-hmm.
from those struggles, particularly as you said, putting herself first, and not necessarily doing what everyone else thinks she should do or
Mm-hmm.
wants her to do. She's putting herself first. And I think a lot of people think that's selfish, but I think of
No.
it completely the other way. I think you have to do that. I don't think you can live your life for other people. I mean, have you been in touch with any of your other Miss Grand sisters, like over message or anything like that, getting ready to meet up with them?
Well, Malia made a WhatsApp group, so
That's right. Yes.
we're all on this WhatsApp group, and we say like good morning, and the other one is it's
Good
nighttime here.
night. Yes.
Good night, good morning, good afternoon, and we send the time. Um,
Okay.
but we're all kind of commenting on each other's photos,
Yeah.
boosting each other up, because
Yeah, good.
it's incredible. I'm just completely in awe of everything going on. Completely in awe. Especially as I see myself around. I'm going to be around all of these super experienced pageant girls and really successful pageant girls. I feel like I have so much to learn off them, and obviously I have my own training going on
Yeah.
and stuff, but you learn a lot of them as well. It's amazing. I
I
can't
mean,
believe.
I think you're going to have an amazing and a really fascinating time. And I think the fact that maybe you're not as experienced as the others, that can sometimes be an advantage. I mean, you look at some of the biggest pageants in the world, and sometimes the girls who've done the best, it's their first ever pageant. So I'm not saying you don't do the
Okay.
work, but sometimes, when you train too much, you can you can lose that sense of self, and you can just become like a carbon copy of everyone else. And I
Hmm.
think there's something to be said about remaining authentic to yourself, even down to the walk and your stage presence. Um,
Hmm.
but I mean, I got to ask, like, how are you feeling about getting to represent your country on an international stage? It's one of the biggest and most watched pageants in the world. So, how are you feeling about that?
I just hope that I can do Gibraltar justice. Um, I really, really want to put across that we are really, really warm climate, people, food, energy. Um, we're kind of a melting pot of lots of different cultures, and I really want that to come through. So my national costume is actually being designed by a local designer, but she's actually
Wow.
part of the Indian community. So I think
Right.
that kind
Okay.
of highlights how diverse we are.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that all of these flavors and really, really come through.
Mm,
It's I'm excited, but I know I'm working. I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
good. What are the major cultures in Gibraltar? I know that you guys are a melting pot. Obviously,
Hmm.
there's the English, the UK part, then there's the Spanish part. You just mentioned the Indian part. What
Yes,
are there other major influences in Gibraltar as well?
yes. We have a huge Moroccan influence in
Right,
Gibraltar
okay.
because obviously, um, the African continent is
It's
just.
just on the other
It,
side of the bay.
I can literally see it through my window right now.
Oh wow, okay. That close.
Yeah, like I could see it. Um, People get a ferry over, and it's about 40 minutes, I believe. Might be
Wow.
longer. Don't quote me if I'm wrong.
Okay.
Um, but I think it's about 40 minutes an hour. So we have a really big Moroccan community in Gibraltar. We have a huge Indian community as well. Many shops in Gibraltar are owned by members of the Indian community. We have
Wow.
Spanish. Then we have we have other people living here. So we have actually quite a big Asian community recently. I see quite a lot of Asian people in
Mm.
Gibraltar, but I think that the Moroccan and the Indian community kind of surpass for
Yeah.
now.
It sounds
Yeah.
like a fascinating melting pot because I think it's always interesting when you see how different cultures can come together in one country. I mean, Australia is multicultural, but we're a lot bigger
Mhm.
space wise. So
Huge.
it wouldn't quite be the same, and obviously a different selection of people. How long is it until Miss Grand International? I have trouble keeping up with
For
when
four
what's
months.
happening when.
4 months. So it's on October 25th.
4
So
months. Okay. Um, have you ever traveled that far outside of Jib before?
I've been to Thailand. I
Oh, wow,
actually
okay.
I actually taught in Thailand, in Bangkok for 5 weeks, and then I was able to tour some islands. I went to Koh Phangan and Koh Samui and Koh Tao, but I loved um, Thailand. So I'm really really excited about being in Vietnam. Super excited. I keep on googling pictures. Pictures. I don't want to get too excited. I don't want to ruin it either because I kind of want to
Yeah.
really feel it when I'm there, but I can't help it. Just Vietnam, scroll.
I thought you were Googling best places to eat or something like that.
Oh,
I'm glad to see that
sure.
you were. Yeah. I'm glad. You're like the opposite of Faith in that way, because Faith said she's a really picky eater. She can't really enjoy most of that stuff. You sound like you sound like you're going to, maybe after the pageant, I don't know, but it sounds like you're going to go crazy and just. I mean, Vietnamese food is
Oh,
it's
amazing. There's actually a Vietnamese restaurant in Gibraltar,
oh wow.
uh, and I'm like a local. I'm
You're one
over.
of the most frequent customers. What
Yes,
on this menu? What are you having generally? What do you like in the Vietnamese restaurant?
I love the vermicelli noodles.
The pho, the noodle soup. Yeah.
No, not pho. It's like vermicelli. Because I do like
Okay.
pho as well, but I don't really
Right.
order it. That's more of a sit down thing. Um, Crispy chili beef, my favorite.
There's the vegetarian. Yeah, the ex-vegetarian.
That's why I paused. I thought,
I mean, look, in this day and age, it's much. I mean, you said it's difficult, maybe a bit more difficult in Gibraltar, but in Australia and generally, I think it's much easier now to get really good quality vegetarian food that's really tasty. Like back 10, 20 years ago, I mean, you could have like vegan milk or vegan cheese, and it was like, oh, just like, no. That's one of the reasons I had to stop being vegan. I couldn't get away from
yeah.
cheese. But tell me, so you've been to that area before, but I think importantly you mentioned that you taught there, and I don't want to gloss over that because obviously all of you have lives outside of pageantry. So what were you doing over in Thailand teaching?
Um, so it was my second year of university. They offered this program. We all had to apply, and I was successful in my application. So we flew over. I can't remember the exact name of the school, um, but it was in Bangkok, and I was there for 5 weeks. The school was kind of all the way until university level, but I only taught within the lower end of the school, and I taught English there as an additional language. So it wasn't like what's it called, a TEFL, teaching
Yeah,
English.
I can't.
Teaching
Yeah.
English as a foreign language. It wasn't so much that I did this course and then I went and taught. It was part of my university program. So I had to do a lot of reflective practice and write-ups of what I was doing.
Mm,
But I loved it. I loved it. Really, really, really cool. I was actually so taken back of how respectful the Thai people are.
yeah.
They would call it crew J, so teacher J. And my favorite thing is that they started school every morning with a whole school assembly, and within this assembly, they would dance and do all these actions and just set the tone for the day.
Yeah.
I thought that was so nice because nowadays we speak so much about well-being and being
Mm,
active and being in a good headspace in education and really homing in on that. And I thought this is the perfect thing to do: sing and dance first thing in the morning. Inevitably, you're going to be in a good mood,
yeah. That
especially how
sounds
these
very.
children, sorry, especially how these children travel. They travel such really long distances to come to this school, so they're exhausted. Bless them. They'll do their dance in the morning, have a few sessions, and then they have a nap.
Oh wow. Okay.
So they nap. I can't remember the exact time because it was a few years ago now, but they napped for a few hours during the day, and then we would go back to class.
It sounds very different to the school that I was in. I mean, we had assembly, but I assure you, there was neither singing nor dancing.
No.
Um, I mean that sounds very far removed from the glitz and glamour of pageantry. So, and you said that you loved it. So obviously, there's something about that you loved. So there's a glitz and glam side with the pageantry and the modeling. What was it about the teaching that you loved so much?
Um, I love. So I qualified to teach children with special educational needs and disability. That's my specialism, and I
Mm,
work in the only special needs school in Gibraltar. Um, so it's kind of we have a lot of different needs that we need to adhere to in one school. And the thing that I love most about it, I think it's difficult because there are lots of aspects to it, but
Sure.
the thing that I take the most is kind of especially working with children with additional needs, it's kind of the unfiltered view of life. It's so authentic and so real. I love my job. I learn way more off the kids than they do off me. Way more. It's the most rewarding and stressful job in the world. But I'm so grateful that I get to do it every day. Really am.
That's a good description of teaching in general, rewarding and stressful. Gibraltar, obviously, it's, as you said, the population is only 32,000. So you said this is the only special needs school in Gib. How many children are we talking about?
So our numbers have grown actually quite a bit in the last 2-3 years. I think there are about 110 pupils
Wow. Okay.
within the school. We've got other mainstream schools have LSF, so learning support facilities for children who are able to access sort of mainstream education, but also have a learning need. But
Yeah.
our school is more for more complex needs and
Right.
Targets.
What sort of learning needs do you deal with on a regular basis? When I was coaching kids, I would have, for example, Down syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
kids like that. We had ADD, ADHD, a few different ones. What are some of the different conditions that you deal with?
So all the ones you've just mentioned.
Hmm.
Autism seems to be very, very prominent in the school, but
Yeah,
there is, with autism there are a lot of it's comorbidities. So usually they have another disability, whether it might be a chromosome duplication, deletion,
yeah,
um, cerebral palsy, global developmental delay,
yeah.
dyslexia, just a bit of everything, really.
I mean, you've mentioned multiple times that your family keeps you grounded. I got to imagine that keeps you pretty grounded as well.
Mm,
I know from working with kids, there's nothing better than working with kids just to keep you on a
yeah.
level and tell you how it is. And sometimes, when us adults are freaking out about stuff that doesn't matter, there's nothing quite like just talking to a kid to set you right. Is that something what you found as well?
Yes, there's actually a little girl in our school. She's not even in my class, but every time she sees me, she says,
Hmm.
"Princess Jaylynn." She's like, "Show me Princess Jaylynn." And what she wants to see is that she wants to see me glammed up. So she wants to see a picture of me dressed up. So because when she sees me at school, I don't mustn't look the best. Um, so she's kind of associated pageant Jaylene as a different person. So she's so funny. She's like, "Show me Princess Jaylene." I'm like, "I am Princess Jaylene. I'm still a princess now." Show me
Well,
Princess Jaylene.
that's very true, isn't it? It's not the makeup that makes the princess. Have you gone into the school at all with crown and sash? Is that something that ever happens?
Well, I took it in. I didn't take in the crown because
Okay.
no, I took in the sash. I took in the sash. Um, so since our children's needs are quite complex, there are only a few children who would be able to really understand
Yeah.
what the role that I've been given. But this one girl is completely obsessed, so I let her wear my sash, and she now models when walking around school. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but she's learnt a few poses off me.
Have you been teaching her in school how to do the different poses?
She loves it. She loves it. She's the cutest, girliest girl ever. So she loves. I show her photos, and she loves it. Really, really does. Super, super sweet girl.
What's the best part or the most rewarding part about what you do?
Seeing the children achieve milestones, for sure. And when a family tells you, thank you for supporting us, for supporting me, that's what I take. That's what I take every single time. So any milestone, for outsiders, it seems like the smallest thing.
Yeah.
But for us, the people that I have to mention, my teaching assistants, my learning support LSAs, without them, I am nothing. And we are such a good team, and we celebrate all the little moments. And again, when a parent tells me, thank you, Jaylynn, for supporting me, or for without you, this wouldn't have been possible.
Yeah.
It could be the most awful day. But if you end it, if someone says something like that to you, it's just, my life is made. I'm good for the month.
I mean, I'd be tearing up if I was you. I don't know about you. You might be made of sterner stuff than me, but
No, it's at the beginning you are very. It's you kind of get not desensitized. That's not the right word, but you kind of get used to it because it's so.
Yeah.
It's so normal. I suppose it's the same as nurses who work in high pressure, chaotic situations. The first time it's very impressionable, and then as time goes on, it kind of becomes less and less impressionable. So that is, I mean, obviously successes, and when a family is hurt, or when they're going through hardships, it hurts me just as much, because you live this with these families and with these children. But equally, you have to become less. You have to become kind of less impressionable by all of these things, because you need to be that rock, that support for that family. If I crumble, how can they lean on me as a support?
Yeah, that sounds a lot more stressful than pageantry, I can tell you. I remember working with some of the kids, and you were talking about like small victories, and I can't exactly remember, but I think it was one of the children who had Down syndrome, and he had finally worked out how to tie his shoelaces up, and he was so excited. We were at the tennis camp, and he ran up to me. He wasn't calling me Princess Jaylynn, I can assure you that. But he's going, Adrian, look at what I can do. And he showed me his shoelaces. And it took a while for me to work out what he was showing me, because he was literally just showing me his shoe with the shoelaces done up. But I knew I knew not to dismiss it. There must be something. It's like, oh, okay, that's cool. What happened? Like, oh, I did the shoelace myself. Like, and when you work with kids like that, you realize how like the smallest things can be the biggest victories. I mean, even for us people, like just making it through a day sometimes and being, putting a smile on your face can seem like, wow, that was a huge victory. But I think that's what I love most about working with kids. Just talking to you, it's reminded me, like a little victory for a kid, and they're so excited to celebrate it and share it. And then sometimes I feel as we get older, we could win the biggest thing in the world and it's not enough, and we're still not happy. So that's got to be an incredibly rewarding career. I do want to ask, how did you get into that? Was it just sort of by happenstance and you weaved your way into it, or was that like from the start you're like, this is what I want to do?
Initially, I had applied for teaching in general, just a primary education course. And when I wrote up my personal statement, my head of year, they read it all over and just kind of give it the green tick that it can be sent. She said, Jaylynn, have you realized that your whole personal statement, most of your personal statement is based on your experience in the Cheshire Homes in Tangiers? So there is like a Cheshire Home. So in Gibraltar, many people from Gibraltar head over to Tangiers in Morocco, and there is it's a place called the Cheshire Homes, and it works with adults with disabilities. So a lot of money goes over to this home in Morocco, and it supports them with whatever they need. whatever pertains to them and whatever their needs are in Morocco. And we were offered an experience in year 12. So I signed up and I went over and I loved it. And in my personal statement, I had written about this. She said, are you sure that you want to go for primary education? And that's where everything kind of started changing. I said, yeah, I still want to do primary education. I can always do special needs and disability later on. And once I sent it off, I got all my offers. And I remember leading up to results day saying, Mom, you know that I'm not going to uni for primary education. My mum had a heart attack, not heart attack, but she was panicking. She was, what do you mean? You've got all your offers and you want to change it up. Like, Jaylynn, everything is set. You've got your accommodation, like in the pipeline. Why are you? We went to visit these universities and I said, no, I'm going to Liverpool to do special needs and disability. And she said, Jaylynn, that's not how it works. You need to then take a gap year and reapply next year. And I go, no, Mum, like, I'm going to apply through clearing. If I've managed to get an offer for a primary education course, I'll be able to get an offer. If I don't, we'll play it out after that. So that's what I did. I got all my offers, I declined them, and I went to do special education needs and disability. And the rest is history.
You sound two things strike me here. One is that you seem to have a fairly clear idea of where it is you want to go, where you want to head. And the other one is you seem pretty fearless. I mean, you're traveling over abroad for your study and then doing work overseas. Is that accurate? Fearless to a degree. I mean, obviously everyone has some fear.
No, I don't know if I would describe myself as fearless, but my mom has always said that in life you have to. It's a Spanish turn of phrase, but I don't know what the translation is in English. I'm trying to think of it. But basically, she says that I just push forward in life and whatever life throws at you to face it head on. That's what I did. It's very common for people in Gibraltar to go over to the UK and study. But maybe going to Thailand and teaching and my Washington experience, I think a bit more fearless than study.
It does sound. There is that English expression, grab the bull by the horns.
Yes.
I don't know if that's...
Yes, that's exactly what I was trying to say.
Oh, okay. Is that a Spanish expression? I always figured that was an English expression.
I don't want to say it because I'm going to say it wrong, so I'm not going to say it.
The Spanglish thing, like, do you, I mean, because obviously you're going to be overseas with people who speak like all different types of language, but I'm assuming most of the time at Grant it's going to be English. Do you do the thing that where it's like you speak half a sentence in English and then throw in a Spanish word and everyone looks at you a bit confused?
Yes. So when I first moved over to the UK, I found it incredibly difficult to speak mainly in English, just because even though our whole education system is English, and I think Faith explained it, that kind of the older generation speak more Spanish, and because of the education system and life division, we kind of speak more English. I still struggled. But what would happen is that I would move over, speak in English, and then when I would come back, I would struggle to speak in Spanish. So it was kind of like I could never catch up with either. So I'd be over there struggling to speak English and then coming back and struggling to speak Spanish. It was only during my teaching, my PGCE year, so my qualifying teacher, teaching year, is where I was in a school with lots of little Scouse children, where super cute Scouse children, where I had to speak full-blown English. I kind of even, well, my mom said that I even had a bit of a twang, like a bit of a Scouse.
Okay. I was going to ask, how many times did people ask you about where your accent came from and whether you got a Scouse accent? Because the Scouse accent is very, very, very different to your accent. So did you get a lot of people asking you, where's your accent from?
A lot of people thought that we were Irish. actually. Yeah.
Don't sound Irish. I know a
No,
lot of Irish people. You do not sound.
I think
Maybe
it's
English.
wrong. Like how we speak, the way that it's been described to me is that when we speak, it's kind of like we sing.
See that's what I told Faith, but that's actually more Welsh. That's the sing-songy. Well, it was the Scouse. So the Scouse people telling you that you're Irish. I don't exactly. But did you pick up any like a Scouse accent or any any of the Scouse slang?
Or Plazzy Scouser.
It is so. I'm going to
And
say I
it's
much
like,
prefer.
they don't say like home. They don't say home bargains. They'd say the home bargain. So it always has
It's
the, or like instead of Asda, they'd say the Asda. So, but I
oh,
loved it. I love the Scouse accent. Love it.
it's funny because I work a lot with the UK girls, and I don't know if you notice this as well, but there are so many different accents in the UK, and they're
So
all uniquely different. You could have two. I've interviewed two girls who live like down the street from one another, and they could not sound more different. In Australia, we have an Australian accent,
yes,
and
it's
yes, it
true.
can be broader or less, but in the UK, I mean, not even like Scottish Wales, it just you live on the same street and they sound completely different. I've never understood it, but
I never thought of it like that, as in comparing the UK to Australia. You're so
yeah.
right. Like the
I,
Geordie accent, the Newcastle
oh,
accent, so different to the Scouse accent, which is super different to the London accent, which is super different to the Yorkshire accent.
but even in London is the thing because my podcast co-host is from London, but she's Cockney London. So
Yeah.
she sounds completely different to one of my friends who's competing at Miss Supranational. She's from Suffolk. She's English, and she's got that very posh sort of the Queen's English. Then you have someone else from London who's Cockney. Then you've got the Geordies, and then it's like, and I kept asking people, 'cause I couldn't work it out. Like, why do you all sound different? Like I've interviewed hundreds of you, and there's not two of you that actually sound the same. I mean, in Gibraltar, is it just the Gibraltarian accent, or do you guys have like all sorts of different accents as well?
No, I think it's the Gibraltarian accent. It's kind of like what you said. It's broader, or it
Yeah,
depends how much Spanish they speak or how much English they speak. Depends
yeah.
how they sound. That's kind of how we can distinguish different accents. But really, we all sound more or less the same.
Well, I am fascinated by the Gibraltarian accent because it sounds English, but it's not. So I keep trying to figure out. But I'm fascinated that you didn't realize like how many different accents there are in the UK.
No,
It was so
I didn't know, but I just hadn't compared it to
yeah,
Australia because it's true.
yeah.
Wow.
Endless source of fascination to me. Anyway, we've been on for a minute, so we should probably get towards the final 10 questions. But just before we do, is there anyone that you would like to give a shout out to?
I'd like to give a shout out to my family, to my partner, to Kelvin and Rafa, who are it's Kelvin is a director of Miss Gibraltar and Rafa is his partner who helps him greatly. To Charlene Figueras, to Nairi Shipolina. I'm sure I'm missing people, but thank you to everyone who's helped me on my Miss Gibraltar journey, and all of the people who are helping me on my Miss Grand one. So thank you.
You're going to have an amazing time, I'm sure. Okay,
Hope.
fingers
Okay.
crossed. Final 10 questions. Number one, what is your favorite word?
Hullabaloo.
Okay. Why? You don't normally have to. You don't have to answer why, but I'm just curious. Why hullabaloo?
Because it's just a funny word. A hullabaloo.
How long
It's
have you? Is that a word you picked up in the UK? I mean, it's not a very. It's a very
no,
old kind of word.
They say it a lot in well, at least my mom says it a lot in Gibraltar. What's all the hullabaloo?
Okay.
I don't know. I think someone's asked me this before, and that was my answer. So when you asked me, I just thought, yeah, hullabaloo.
It is a very funny word, even to say hullabaloo. I will tell you, I've never had that answer to a question before. Like when you've done as many interviews as I have, anytime you get a different answer, it's like, oh, that's one I haven't heard before. Okay, well, what's your least favorite word?
Uh, um, when it's in Spanish, when they say like clown, like payaso, I really, really, really dislike that word because it's so demeaning. I just don't like it when people use it. It's not a word I use at
Oh,
all.
okay. So, but it means clown, as in a
Clown.
circus
That's the
clown.
literal translation, but it can be used quite offensively. I don't like
Okay.
it's like almost I don't know. It's
Okay.
like you're making fun of someone. It's not
Okay.
nice.
All right. It's interesting hearing in different languages what would be considered quite derogatory in another language. It is
I know.
meaningless. I've had that thing with Chinese where you have certain cursing in Chinese and it's completely harmless in English. But anyway, number 3 in life. What gets you excited, or what turns you on?
Mm, what gets me excited? It sounds really bad. Food. I I love. It's my favorite thing when and being by a beach. Like having good food by a beach is my favorite thing in the world.
How do you prep for a pageant then? When when your favorite thing is food and you're
I
near all this amazing food, how do you do that?
I'm I'm very lucky. I have a very, very fast metabolism. I think doesn't matter how much I train or how much I eat, I just stay the same.
Uh, I hope you keep that. The
I,
fast metabolisms have been known to slow as you get
I
older.
know.
I'm just saying. So you
I know.
might want to might want to be a bit careful with that.
I,
What's it? You brought up food. What is your favorite food, or 1, 2, or 3 favorite foods? If one food is too
oh
difficult.
my God. When people say, if you had to choose your final meal, what would it be?
Yes. Yeah.
So my
Okay.
final meal would be starter chicken liver pate.
Not expect that. Okay.
Amazing with caramelized onions. Then my main would probably be either an Indian or a Chinese dish. So it would be either the crispy chili beef with rice or
Yeah.
noodles, or it would be um, chicken tikka and balti.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are we having dessert?
Yes, of
Oh, okay.
course. Dessert be something really, really simple. It would be either an ice cream, like a chocolate ice cream, or it would be something really, really not that complicated, but a tocino de cielo, which is you heard of flan before?
Mm,
Flan. It's kind of like flan, but it's sweeter.
okay.
That's my favorite meal.
I have never had anyone take that question and describe to me in detail a 3-course menu.
Sounds really bad. Shall I change it and say like being by the beach? No, but my being with my family by the beach, having a nice meal. My favorite thing, for sure.
Chicken liver pate. That I was not expecting at all. Um, have you ever tried Peking duck? Speaking of Chinese food,
Yeah,
have you ever tried Peking duck? Because
love it
that's one of my absolute favorites. Yeah,
with
okay.
cucumber
Yeah,
and hoisin.
I don't know how you guys have it, but it's normally with a cucumber, shallot, hoisin sauce,
Mm-hmm.
and then you have it as a. I'm getting hungry talking to you. I need to stop. You just. I mean, for lunch today, I decided to be a bit fancy, and I had a piece of toast, avocado, smoked salmon, and then I poached an egg on top and put some truffle oil, and I felt so fancy.
With
And now I'm
truffle
just
oil.
talking. Yeah, it's just
That's
that the smell. Well, yeah, the smell of it is just something else. And then here you are describing chicken liver pate. I'm like, okay, you're obviously not simple tastes. But I guess if it's final meal, then you get to have whatever you want. Okay, so that was what turns you on, food. What about what turns you off?
In my mom is the person that points this out to me. Injustice. She said you can't. She's like you. I find it really, really, really difficult when people don't have equal opportunities, but even in the simplest of things, like I don't know, maybe if someone hasn't had this is a really bad example, but if someone hasn't had a turn to do something, I'm like, but why? Just let them have a turn, even if it's a shorter one. Or when people have get an unfair advantage or an unfair disadvantage, those things really play on me. I struggle with that. That's one thing that really gets to me.
Yeah, I can see that. I would say you probably want to stay away from the news then, if you don't want to hear about injustices. The news would be a terrible, terrible place to be, especially at the moment. Okay. Number 5, what sound or noise do you love?
I love music. It's a really big thing in my life. So I think my favorite sound would probably be my favorite songs.
What's your favorite songs at the moment? Or is there a particular genre?
I like everything. I love classical music. I love pop music. I love R&B. I love everything. House music. I love everything. Country music.
Wow. Whoa, that's a really broad, going from classical to house to country. Is there any type of music you don't like?
No, I like it all. I like flamenco music as well, a lot. But my favorite song, it's difficult. I can't
More
think of my
difficult than you coming up with the.
I have many of them. I have a playlist called All Time Favorites, and I only add a song there if I really, really, really like it.
I did that, but then the problem was I remember I had almost the exact same thing, and back when Lady Gaga released Poker Face, I listened to that again, but the problem is you then listen to it so many times, and my iTunes was counting how many times I played it, and it was in the thousands, and I can't listen to that song to this day because I've ruined it for myself. So that's the problem. You have all-time favorites, and you play it too much, and then you.
But that's the thing. That's the thing. I'll only add songs to that playlist which are kind of sacred. So I love Unwritten by Natasha Bedingfield.
Okay.
That's one of my favorite songs. I like Redemption Song by Bob Marley, but I like the Lauryn Hill version. I have Taylor Swift, Karma, the new one. Karma is. I love that song.
That is a very diverse playlist.
I know. I have Tennessee Whiskey by Chris Appleton on that playlist. Wow. I'm telling you, it varies. It varies.
Fascinating to hear the stereo at your place.
And my boyfriend laughs at me because I'll put my phone on shuffle and when we're driving to Spain or somewhere, and he's like, Jaylynn, you've got The Little Mermaid. and then you've got the most random, like something that's really new on the charts, like a Spanish like reggaeton song or whatever. he's like, I don't know if we're coming or if we're going.
I sympathize with him. I mean, you're going from The Little Mermaid to Tennessee Whiskey. I'd be like, I'm confused. What are we listening to here?
Sometimes he turns it off and puts the radio and he says, that's it. You're done. You're done.
That's dangerous territory, I will say. When people touch each other's music, it's like, that can be very, very dangerous.
Or when they talk over it and you're like, trying to listen to the song here.
That's always happens when you're playing your favorite song and you're really getting into it and you're wanting to listen to it, and then someone asks you a really stupid question and you're just like, can you go away? Yeah, leave me alone.
Put the song and start it from the beginning.
Oh, yes, I do that too. Okay, so that's your favorite sound. Number 6, what sound or noise do you hate?
Um, when people are cutting their food and the knife scratches on the
Screeches?
plate. Oh, worst sound ever.
Yeah, I can understand that one. That one's the most normal answer that we've had so far. That one I
I'm
have had
gonna,
before.
I'm gonna
I'm
leave
s-
this interview thinking, what have I just spilled, Jaylynn?
I'm still getting over hullabaloo. That's going to be stuck in my mind for. I have not. I don't think I've used that word once in my life. I've heard it, but to hear someone say that's their favorite word,
I don't really use it. I don't use it at all, but it's just a funny word. Hullabaloo.
but now that it's in your head, you're going to use it at some point today. I assure you. Okay, so number 7, if you could have any one superpower, what would you pick and why?
I mean, if I was really, really, really being granted this, I would say to stop poverty in the
Hmm,
whole world. That's the selfless answer, 100%. The selfish answer would be to teleport. Maybe I can get both.
maybe, maybe we'll see what we can arrange. I mean, you did have a 3-course meal for your favorite foods. Maybe we can
You're
have 2 superpowers for the price of one. We'll see. Number 8, what job other than your own would you most like to attempt?
That's hard. Um, I would love to be a singer. I cannot
Why?
sing,
Oh,
and
okay. I wasn't sure why that was so funny. It's like, yeah, you love music. I mean,
that's why I love music, but I can't sing. Imagine if I could.
what? Okay, but how bad is it? I mean, there are some girls who say they can't sing and it's just false modesty, and then there are some that sound like a drowning cat. Like, where are we on the scale?
I mean, I think a solid 5. No, still there.
That's not that bad. So you can hold a tune, like singing in the
Yes,
shower, singing in the car. It's all right. You just don't want to
I'm.
wind down the windows.
I'm not. Yes, I'm not. I'm not. I'm not. I'm not tone deaf, but I.
Good.
But I can hold up a rhythm and a melody, but I just can't reach the high notes.
What? There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, some people have lower pitched voices, so you just find your own range,
So
right?
at work, there are a lot of things that need to be sung. So we
Oh yeah.
sing like a weather song, a circle time song, a timetable song. There's a few things that we sing, and sometimes my teaching assistants go, "That came out really nice. That came out really nicely," and other times they're like, "I take it back. That didn't come out really nicely."
Are you traumatizing the children with your singing? Oh dear. Now I'm really curious to hear your singing. I won't make you sing. I have had people sing on live before. Um,
I'm all good.
yeah, I can tell from the way your eyes went on like this. All right, number 9. What job would you definitely not like to attempt?
Um, any office job. I would not be able to sit down in an office 9 to 5 typing, and I wouldn't be able to do it. No, no way.
Have you ever tried it?
Anything computer skills in general, I just can't be in front of a screen for too long. I'm quite energetic. I should have probably
I
used
could
that
never
word to
tell.
describe me before. I have a lot of energy. So for me, being sat down for all day is just, it's not it.
You you say energetic, and the other word you use to describe yourself is fun. Do you ever just do randomly impulsive things, like for no reason?
Yes, like might be 11 o'clock at night and I'll think, I've seen a TikTok of these lemon cookies. I'm going to make lemon cookies. And I'll get up. My mom's like, I've just cleaned the kitchen. I'm like, don't worry, I'll clean it up. make my lemon cookies.
People like you, it's very dangerous to be on TikTok because you get all sorts of random bad ideas at 11 p.m. when you really should be sleeping. Oh dear. Did the cookies turn out okay? Can you cook? I'm going to bet you're a good cook.
I'm okay. I'm good. I can get by. I prefer cooking than baking.
Yeah. Same.
But
Well,
they were
you said your singing was 5 out of 10. How's your cooking out of 10?
I would say, I mean, if Gordon Ramsay is a 10, which is the bar is high,
Yes.
I would be a 7.
That's okay. If Gordon Ramsay's a 10.
I mean, then I'll probably be like a 4.
When you were over in the UK, did you ever get a chance to go to one of his restaurants?
No, but I did go as a treat for my boyfriend treated me on Valentine's Day. We went to the Savoy in London.
Oh wow.
Amazing.
Now I'm jealous.
Yep. And at the time I was vegetarian and I didn't order the beef Wellington. Regrets.
Oh. You know what Gordon Ramsay thinks about vegetarians, right? It's changed recently. He's not really a huge fan of vegetarians. I can't believe you went to his restaurant and had, that's such a shame.
We need to go again, but with knowing that I'm a carnivore now.
You can try the Wellington yourself. I have used his recipe to make the Wellington at home. I'm sure it's not as good as what he makes, but it's not too difficult to make. So you could try it at home.
Finely diced mushrooms and the pastry over it.
Yep. So you've got the talking about food here. You've got the meat. You've put the mustard around the outside. You put the mushrooms around the outside of the mustard. Then you wrap it up in cling film and turn it into like a sausage. Put it in the fridge. Then you bring it out when it's still cold. Put the pastry around the outside, egg wash, and then throw it in the oven. And then you eat. I'm so hungry now. This is ridiculous. Anyway, I have a. Gordon Ramsay is my favorite chef. When he was over here in Australia, I went to a private event that he was having, and he was there cooking for us, and it was really, really cool.
So cool.
Yeah. So if I was going to anyone's restaurant, it would, literally the Savoy is like his flagship restaurant. So I'm very jealous now. That wouldn't have been a cheap Valentine's Day, I will say.
No, it was a treat. We haven't gone again.
Although you're vegetarian, so you would have been cheaper, probably.
Traumatized. My poor boyfriend was traumatized. And then I broke it with ribs. I could have broken it in the Savoy.
You really missed the trick there. I think you need to do that one again. Okay, final question. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates?
You did your best. You were kind, and you made an impact on a lot of people.
Sounds good to me. Well, Jaylynn, it's been a pleasure. We've been on for a while. Thank you for the hullabaloo.
When I rewatch this, I'm going to regret that I said all of that.
Well, you know already which part of this interview I'm going to be clipping out. There might be several parts, but there's certainly going to be one that has hullabaloo in it, as was a unique answer. But thank you so much for coming on, and best of luck.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Going to be watching with great excitement over at Grant in 4 months' time, so not long to go now. But I'll thank everyone for watching live or on the replay, and we will speak to you next time. Bye for now.
Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Sorority Access is now open, so if you'd like to join an amazing group of women and learn how to be the most powerful, confident, and impactful queen possible, head to thepageantsorority.com. I'll see you there, and see you in the next video.